Welcome into the 49er Access Podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and talk about a statement victory for the San Francisco 49ers, declawing and annihilating the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-3 in Jacksonville, coming off the bye week. The Niners advanced to 6-3 on the year, still in first place in the NFC West, and Philadelphia on the bye week this week. I guess you can say they climbed half a game closer to the number one seed in the NFC, with Philadelphia just a handful of weeks away. And after winning by 31 points on Sunday over Jacksonville, it's the first time the San Francisco 49ers have won on the road by at least 31 points since week 8 of 2013 against, you guessed it, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this was a game coming in where I thought San Francisco could have won this game, should have won this game. I said 27-24, but boy, did the San Francisco 49ers prove me wrong in all of the right ways. Yes, there are areas that maybe still gave them some problems that need to be cleaned up against the Buccaneers, especially against Seattle and Philadelphia, but you talk about the San Francisco 49ers getting themselves right, beating the second hottest team in football, who was on a 5-game winning streak coming off the bye week of their own. San Francisco, did they get their groove back against the Jacksonville Jaguars? And I can just say this, that at least the defense did. The offense looked great again, 34 points, but the bigger question mark coming in to this week was Steve Wilks. You've had a week and a half to get this thing right. There's a talk of Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilks having one-on-one private conversations, hoping that they can figure this weird 3-game stretch out where you won 5 games in a row. The defense plays great. Then you lose against the Browns and the Vikings and the Bengals, and things just look off. The defense can't get sacks. You can't get pressure. You can't cover anymore. And it felt as if everything was going wrong and things were falling apart. This past week, prior to the game on Sunday against the Jaguars, Steve Wilks makes a blanket statement saying, hey, I am built for this. And my question for him was, then prove it. And oh, by golly, did Steve Wilks prove to me, to the fan base, to the team itself, that he indeed is the right man for the job, at least against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Has to carry it over, and we'll certainly get into that today. Going to talk about Brock Purdy, how great he was. Chris McCaffrey not scoring a touchdown. But again, let's focus on the defense first. And before we do, I want to remind you, we're brought to you by SeatGeek. Use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, this Niners defense, what happened on Sunday? Niners, I believe, won the toss, deferred, and said, we're going to put our much criticized defensive coordinator in the spotlight early. Prior to the game, there was a cutaway to Steve Wilks, and I was like, how many of those are we going to get today if things go poorly? Thankfully, almost nothing went poorly for the Niners on defense, really on both sides of the ball all day long. Steve Wilks out of the booth, on the field. What was the impact? He's not going to be DeMeco Ryans. He's not going to be Robert Saleh flexing and screaming and throwing down clipboards and headsets when he's happy and dabbing up players and whatnot. But we saw for the first time the maybe more energetic side of Steve Wilks on Mooney Ward when he batted the ball down on 3rd down in the end zone. Jaguars are marching, gets the big pass defense. He's out there dabbing him up, clapping with him, getting in his face, celebrating with him on Ambry Thomas's fumble recovery and strip of Christian Kirk, which was an assumed touchdown for about 20 seconds before it got called back. You can see Steve Wilks, who, again, we talked for months and months and months that Ambry Thomas was someone that he might be able to revitalize his career. You can tell there was this proud father moment of, you're being tasked with playing outside corner in lieu of Lenoir sliding inside to replace Oliver at nickel. And Thomas was the best covered player on the entire field against a pretty darn good Jacksonville Jaguars defense. You saw Steve Wilks give him a big hug, get in his face, and you can just assume saying, like, I am so proud of you. Then you also see him doing the Javon Hargrave sack celebration with Hargrave. This defense felt like it was playing more free. Felt like there was this almost liberation of you're no longer trapped inside this metaphorical and literal booth of a box. It's go out there and just play defense. Yes, getting Chase Young certainly helps to almost reestablish the all-in mantra this team has carried over the past couple years, getting McCaffrey, Hargrave, now Chase Young. But I do think that on the very first play of the game, go back and watch it, San Francisco has 5 defensive linemen out there. Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, Kinlaw, and Chase Young. From the first play, then you see Lenoir on the nickel, Thomas outside. You go, this is an entirely new defense than what we've seen. They're going to be more aggressive, but not in the blitzing kind of way. More so of just Wilks saying, I got 5 dogs on the front 7, and that doesn't even include Warner and Greenlaw, who were also awesome. It felt more of like, let's just get back to basics. Let's just play smash mouth, control the trenches, San Francisco 49er football, and they did that from the get-go. Again, there wasn't a lot of blitzing. Steve Wilks was brought in, and the conversations were he's going to blitz more, be more aggressive, brought in Isaiah Oliver to be a nickel blitzing player for him, and that's worked in some ways, but not in all the ways. Obviously, not very happy with the final drive of the halftime or before the half against the Vikings. A lot of criticism for that, leading to a touchdown. A lot of blitzing issues for this Niners team. Steve Wilks dialed the blitzing down from 23% on average to only 8% against the Jaguars, and they still got pressures on 31% of their dropbacks, up 26% from the average. So less blitzing in this game by 15%, and the pressures went up by 5%. I'm not going to say that's the cause of it, but I'm sure it's not just a coincidence that when your players are playing freely, they have this reinvigorated off the bye week energy, and you have a new Chase Young and a new toy in the building on the defensive line. You can just tell there was this spark of energy from the get-go. Steve Wilks called a great game for this team, and I guarantee you sparked this Niners defense that did tally 5 sacks on the day. Nick Bosa got 1.5 sacks. Hargrave 1.5 sacks. I thought this was Hargrave's best game as a Niner so far. 1.5 sacks, 3 pressures. One of his pressures led to a sack by somebody else. One of his pressures led to the INT by Fred Warner. He had the highest pass rush win rate on the entire team and the highest run stop win rate on the entire team as well. So when you're getting your interior guys to get pressure, take up double teams, you're allowing your Bosas, your Youngs, your Clelin Ferrells to clean up the mess and really bring down quarterbacks and get sacks. Going further into this, Clelin Ferrell had 1 sack. Armstead, the first third down of the game for the defense, what does he do? Burst through the defensive line with Nick Bosa and a tag team Lawrence for the first sack of the game, leading to a punt, almost setting a tone, sending a message to the Jaguars of like, yeah, like past 3 weeks wasn't us. We haven't been getting sacks. First drive, boom, sack on the very third play of the game, gets a punt. The offense goes down, scores a touchdown. The defense was the tone setter, and that this is how they're going to play the rest of the year in second halves, whereas in previous months in October, Shanahan's record isn't very good, but the past couple years in November, now they're 9-2. This is the month where San Francisco begins their march towards the top of the NFC, and if they're going to play this way, it's going to make the offense's job so much easier. And if Young and Bosa and Hargrave and company can get pressure, it's going to make Lenoir and Thomas and Oliver and Mooney Ward, Nufungas and Gibson's job a lot easier as well. Chase Young, though, his first game with San Francisco had a 0.5 sack, and you can just tell the chemistry with Nick Bosa is there. It is abundantly clear that with Nick Bosa and Chase Young together on the field, they are called the Buckeye Bros, played in college together. They obviously had this big brother, little brother relationship, and you can just tell that by Nick Bosa's own words, I'm happy you're here. We're happy to have you here. That their chemistry is unlike many we've seen here in San Francisco. It was a great win, but also, again, a very dominating victory. It wasn't as if, like, Had San Francisco come into this game and won 27-24 like I thought it was going to be, or was a hard-fought victory, I do think we'd sit here and say, you beat a very good team, give the Jaguars credit, but again, San Francisco annihilated them. Like, this crushed one of the hottest teams in football by 31 points. In fact, when they've played the Dallas Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would argue B-tier teams that are really good, not elite, but really good teams trying to make a statement that, want to give it to San Francisco. They have outscored Dallas 42-10 in this game against Jaguars 34-3, 76-13. Dallas and Jacksonville. This team loves to crush B-tier teams that are going to be playoff teams, and they really proved in this game that the Niners are an elite team. When they're all healthy, everyone's back and good to go. You can just feel this team felt like the team that was the first 5 weeks of the year, not the past 3. Going back to Chase Young and Nick Bosa, there's a play in this game where it was as if you're watching a mirror image of each other. I'm not sure if they're down or what quarter it was, but they both beat the tackles at what seemed like on the exact same pass rush move and are just moving towards the quarterback for a sack. Just two forces ready to combine for a sack. And it was like, oh my goodness, is this what heaven looks like? Is this what this perfect edge rushing duo would look like here? And I honestly believe, again, that Chase Young can stay healthy, Nick Bosa can stay healthy, and they can carry this over for the next, couple of months prior to the playoffs, that this is going to be by far the best edge rushing duo we've had in San Francisco since Alden Smith and Ahmed Brooks, probably. And I like D Ford for a year. He was fine. Amenihu and Ebukam the last couple of years, no disrespect. If this is how they're going to play every single week, or at least getting pressures and getting sacks and whatnot, this is going to be the best edge rushing duo for the next 2 months we've seen since the Harbaugh era in San Francisco. And that's really exciting to see. Going even further into the defense, they have 5 sacks. You also got 4 takeaways. It felt as if everything that Steve Wilks' defense and the defense itself have been criticized for was you don't get sacks, you're not getting takeaways, and you're not getting off the field on third down. And you're not tackling. Everything they've been criticized for and people have been talking about of like Steve Wilks could get fired. Even I said, they don't get this thing right against Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. You cannot go into Seattle with this defense led by Steve Wilks. Everything they were criticized for, they were great at against the Jaguars, who are a much better team than Cleveland, than the Vikings, and the Bengals, in my opinion, up to this point of the year. Now we'll see in a few months where this win stands, but at this point, 5-game winning streak off the bye week, Jaguars at home, riding high. They smacked the you-know-what out of Trevor Lawrence and that Jaguars offense that was rested. They were healthy, have some of the best weapons in football with a really good head coach and a pretty good quarterback leading the helm. San Francisco said that means nothing to us. We have a comment here from Bobo, says, great win against a great team, and the schedule only gets harder from here. I really want to humiliate the Seattle Seahawks. I agree, Bobo. It's one win. It doesn't mean we're Super Bowl champions or we're back in the elite category. We never left, mind you. But I do believe that huge win for San Francisco, and you got Seattle in 2 weeks. You actually got them twice in the next 5 weeks. You have a really good chance to sweep them. In my opinion, the Seahawks aren't really that good. They're fine. They got Pete Carroll. They're always going to be prepared for a game, but we've seen them up and down this year. Geno Smith has not been Geno Smith this year. The offense is kind of stagnant, and the defense is better, but not, the Legion of Boom they were told us they were going to be this year, or the LOB 2.0. But Bobo, you are correct. Great win against a good team. Only gets harder from here, and I have hope they're going to continue this. But again, going back to takeaways, Hufanga had 1 pick, Warner had 1 pick, Nick Bosa and Chase Young combined for a strip sack. It was just pure heaven on the field. Then Ambry Thomas gets a forced fumble, and someone who we didn't expect to start, or someone I said that I don't want to see Oliver lined up against your Christian Kirks of the world. Obviously, Steve Wilks agreed with me, and he put Lenore out there, and Ambry Thomas came to play. I'm not sure like what's going on with him. He had a pretty good camp, in my opinion. Obviously, during the year, hasn't been the same production-wise. Obviously, got benched to begin the year, and so he hasn't been as productive. But in this game, give him his kudos. He was awesome. Great in coverage. You really didn't hear the names Ridley or Christian Kirk, although Christian Kirk was great against Lenore. He was really held to no touchdowns. Again, they only scored 3 points, and their offense that is very explosive had no explosive plays, maybe outside of one that was 20-plus yards on a short pass to Kirk where he beat Lenore off the catch for some yak. It wasn't as if we were beating or getting beat downfield. Coverage was great. And Ambry Thomas, had it not been for Jair Brown and D. Winters, some rookies, and even Kyle Shanahan himself, that would have been a strip sack touchdown, and this game would have been 40-plus points to 3. This would have been a better win, point-wise, compared to the Dallas Cowboys game, which is one of the best wins all year long from any team in the entire league outside of Miami over the Broncos. So San Francisco, this game could have easily been worse or better in the Niners' favor, and then the starters didn't play for half of the fourth quarter. This felt as if this was the Niners of the first 5 weeks of Sam Darnold's getting reps again because the defense is playing great, they're getting takeaways, and the offense is playing stellar football. On third downs, again, one of the bigger issues for San Francisco, they held Jacksonville to 4-12 on the day, a 33% third down conversion rate. On the first drive of the game, we talked about Eric Armstead's sack led to a punt. Second drive of the game for the Jaguars, Javon Hargrave's sack led to a punt. On third down later in the game, when Jacksonville had the ball on our 1-yard line, it marched almost 99 yards. Mooney Ward gets the pass deflection. Steve Wilks is hyping him up, leads to a punt, I believe, or maybe a field goal on the day, and prevents the touchdown. And later on third down, Bosa gets a pressure, leads to a Hufanga pick. This team was making plays on pivotal downs all day long. This was a get-right game of sorts, but this was the most dominant get-right game you can have. In previous years, it was, thank God we're playing the Rams so we can get right against them. This game was, Jaguars are good. Like, they lead the AFC South. They're a first-place team in their division. They've beaten the Bills this year. They've beaten some really good teams that are riding high. And San Francisco took a freaking baseball bat to their neck and said, we don't care what you have for us. It's not good enough for us. We are elite for a reason, and you're a B-tier team for the exact same reason. Tackling, a huge issue for us the past couple weeks. 33 missed tackles or 32 missed tackles the past 3 games against the Jaguars, just 7. They had 10 against Cleveland, 9 against Minnesota, and 13 against the Bengals. Again, only 7 on the day against the Jaguars. The Niners cleaned up all of their miscues. And I literally mean all of their miscues. Sacks, takeaways, tackling, and third downs was almost borderline perfection for them from the minute this game started. Whether it was the NASCAR package to begin the game, Thomas playing outside corner, Lenore playing nickel, the sacks they got to begin this game, takeaways, turnovers, you can just feel the difference. I put on Twitter over and over and over again, they came to play. Like, this defense came to play to prove to the AFC and send a message, not just to the NFL or the Eagles or the Jaguars, but also to reprove to yourself, we can still do this. When you lose 3 games in a row after winning what seemed like every game you played for in the past year and a half, the doubt can start to creep in. You can start to sit back and say, can we do this? Are we sure we can actually get this done? And they needed the bye week. I don't love the idea they were tired or looked tired. When the first 5 weeks, Sam Darnold's taken reps in 4 of the games and you've won by a large margin, then you lose 3 games in a row and all of a sudden you're tired. I get there was injuries, they were banged up. You want to give this team that deserves every bit of leeway the chance to find themselves again. And you can tell the minute they step foot on the field in Jacksonville, this felt like a home game because there was a handful of faithful there. And it felt as if they controlled this game from the get-go of like they carried this almost cockiness, arrogance, confidence of like the Jaguars do not belong on the same field as us. And we're going to prove that. And once we prove that, we're not going to stop doing it over and over and over again. This Niners team was awesome. And I hate to break it to you, Steve Wilks, you are never going back into the booth ever again as long as you're here. You don't have 3 bad games in a row, make the change, play like this, and say, I'm going to go back up there where I wasn't very good or the defense played poorly. He has to be on the sideline every single game going forward. If he's not, you're going to have questions as to what's going on. Why is there an issue? Because you don't do that on Sunday against the Jaguars and say, I'm going to go back up there. I'm more comfortable. No, that conversation is over with. It's done because everything clicked for you on defense. I also think that when you get back players like Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel, it just, again, you score 30 points on offense for what seems like the 1,000th time this year. Every game you've won, you put up 30 points plus, right? You can just tell the impact Deebo and Trent Williams have on this offense of guys like Deebo in himself. He's the leading receiver on this team. I talked about getting him back in the fray, moves Ayuk back down, moves Juwan back down into their second and third receiver spots. It gives them the ability to be on number 2 cornerbacks and number 3 cornerbacks, and it allows them to fit the mold of the offense they're supposed to be in, right? And we knew Deebo, big game for him, or was supposed to be a big game for him. Jaguars give up a ton of yak coming into this game, over 150 yards of yak per game. It's pretty crazy how bad they are at tackling or stopping yak yardage. But getting Trent Williams back was so big for the offensive line and this offense as a whole. Coming into this game, Trent was, he was highly questionable, truly a game time decision. Adam Schefter says he's going to play. Diana Rossetti says he's not going to play. Then Schefter doubles down. Then Rappaport says he's not going to play. Then Schefter says, no, he's playing. And you're like, what is going on? Like, who are your sources? Like this, how do all these plugged in people have this many different lanes and answers that don't correlate or don't relate or line up together? This is crazy. Like, what is happening with Trent Williams? Then you see Trent's, the report comes out. He's not inactive. He's going to play, and you have the fan base lose their mind. They're saying, we're going to the Super Bowl again, obviously being fun and having fun with it. But you can tell, despite Trent playing left tackle, when he walks on the field with the boombox, walks out, it's like, we got our boys back. But for Shanahan, it's as if he has another offensive weapon. And when you think of that, you think of Deebo and your McCaffreys and your Kittles and your Ayuks, but it feels as if he is just as important as them. Of course, he's your best left tackle in the entire league. He blocks Brock Purdy's blind side, but the way he's able to get out on blocks, open up lanes, again, it's almost like Kyle has another offensive weapon at his disposal. And I can argue that, yes, you have McCaffrey and these amazing all-pro players. Trent might be the most important piece, or if not the most important, the second most important piece on the offense. Because what he's able to do to free up McCaffrey, open up the running game, give Purdy time to throw. And in this game, it wasn't Trent's best game. Obviously, still 75 to 85% per his own words. He was still great. Like, there was a play in this game where they jump out on the run, Trent's leading the charge, and a defender said, I don't want to take you head on. I don't want 340-pound Trent Williams going to crush my bones and send me back to the freaking IR or whatever it's called now. Like, the defender turned his back and ran towards the sideline and said, "No, please stop. No, you can have the extra yards. Just don't hurt me, Trent." Trent said in his post-game press conference, "I've never seen that before." That's how impressive and just what he brings to the table. Yes, behind him is McCaffrey getting 5-6 yards of pop on the ground, and you're saying, "We're back, folks. We're back." But it's like, just follow Trent. He will lead you to the promised land. He is and really should be, when he's evaluated or valued, whether it's PFF or the NFL 100 list or just how you talk about the offense, Trent Williams is another offensive weapon, and he needs to be categorized as one. Not just left tackle, not just offensive line play. He is a weapon, a literal weapon for this offensive line. He's not people talk about Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce. Yes, Trent is heralded as a future Hall of Famer, but he is a weapon for this team, just as Kelce and the Eagles O-line is for a tush push. That's how important Trent is for this offense. And of course, you got Deebo back and everything and whatnot, but just the offensive line as a whole was really good in this game. McKivitz is still a little scary and whatnot, but Burford played much better in this game, where had Banks been healthy, maybe Burford's getting benched. So he's playing for his job, played good against a fairly decent Jaguars defensive line led by Josh Allen. Then you have Jake Brendel playing much better, and you had an offensive line open up holes for the running game for 144 yards on the ground against the third best rushing defense in football. They put up and they doubled the Jaguars' average yards per game at 79, I believe, at 144. Like, this Niners offensive line in the trenches on both sides, defense and offense, controlled this game from the opening kick. McCaffrey had 96 yards on the ground. This was domination. If you're a Pantera fan, this was domination, right? This was this load them up, start shooting, and just don't stop. Like, we are going to make sure that the NFL and the Jaguars know what it's like to play on the field with an elite team. And the Jaguars left at home with their heads down saying, like, what just happened to us? I can assure you the Jaguars have some doubt now that, yeah, we're good, but we're not that good. And San Francisco saying, yeah, we're that good, and it can get even better. Because there were some things that weren't great today. I thought the defense against screen passes wasn't great. Lenore didn't have his best game. This is probably one of Lenore's worst games of the year. But a tough task to guard Christian Kirk. I'm not going to deny that Christian Kirk is the third leading receiver when it comes to slot receiver yardage. Like, he's one of the best ones out there. He's shifty. He's fast. And so I'm not going to criticize Lenore too much, but there are some concerns there of your slot receiver being one of the worst players on defense on the entire day. But besides that, there really was nothing that you can really point to and say, don't love it. Even the run defense that was really heralded as being awesome, or awful, excuse me. The run defense in this game was amazing. They held Jacksonville to under 100 yards, held them under 70 yards. Like, this was a game you point to and say, again, the run defense, which was 25th ranked coming in, 24th ranked coming in, was amazing. Travis Etienne, the NFL's 6th leading rusher, did nothing. Did absolutely nothing. Averaged 3.3 yards on the ground. He was a non-factor when other games they played against other better teams like the Bills. Etienne was a factor. They took away one of the Jacksonville Jaguars' best weapons on the ground, whereas their best run was from Dearness Johnson, who is their third-string running back. It's not like the Jaguars can get anything going offensively. They had one good drive, led to 3 points, and that was it. Randy Daytona in the chat. What's going on, Randy? He has a comment here. The schedule was made very unfairly to the Niners this year. A 3-game stretch was unreasonable. look, I would agree to a certain extent of playing Cleveland on the East Coast, then Minnesota, then back home against the Bengals. So what? Unfortunately, they're also going to have to go play Seattle, in Seattle, then Philadelphia. So West Coast to East Coast, then back home against Seattle. That stinks too. Also have to play on Thanksgiving and Christmas this year. I get what you're saying, though. But when you beat 5 teams in a row and your team, your starters aren't playing very much, that Cleveland game especially doesn't look too unreasonable. And I don't think anybody thought without Nick Chubb, without Deshaun, and without Joel Bitonio, they were going to play that well with that defense. But right now the defense is playing great. Beat the Ravens yesterday. So the Browns are a good team. I know they didn't have their great players, but they're a really good team that I think should be given credit. The Vikings, I think that's the one you point to and say, how the heck do we lose against the Vikings, Randy? That game is just mind-boggling in my brain. Then the Bengals are a good team back at home. Joe Burrow riding high, healthy again off the bye week. That one's tough too, but that's football. That's the NFL. It stinks, but that's behind us now. It feels like that's behind us. I can almost guarantee San Francisco has kind of just said it's a 3-game stretch. Nobody is going to care what happened week 6 through 8 if you are holding a Lombardi trophy come season's end. No one's going to care. I won't care. Do you remember Tom Brady's worst 3-game stretch when he won 7 championships? No. Do you look back and say, well, when Mahomes won those 2 rings, I remember that 3-game stretch where he just wasn't that great. No one's going to care. Now you have to get there and finish off with the championship in your hands, but no one's going to look back and say, that Niners 2023 team, they were great to start, but that 3-game stretch, whoo-wee, they're going to say, wow, they won 10 games in a row and won the whole thing. Like, that's all that matters. That's all this team sees. That 3-game stretch is behind us. Yep, it put us in a hole a little bit trying to climb out of, but we're okay. We have snapped our 3-game losing streak back in the win column, and the offense is back to being who they are, and the defense can hopefully hold up. Now, let's talk about the offense because, oh my goodness, Brock Purdy, he went out there on the bye week, and he touched the magical Iowa cornfields, and he refound it. He didn't lose it, to be honest with you, but 7 bad plays through 3 games had the world saying, you might want to bench this guy. Had Grant Cohn asking Kyle Shanahan, would you bench him? And Shanahan was like, you don't bench a starting quarterback for no reason. Think what you wanted the question, but it also had national media thinking, maybe Brock Purdy isn't that good. Whatever corn husk he touched, whatever magical black magic cornfield he works in, my God, did Brock Purdy come back refreshed, retooled, reinvigorated, and ready to go. Because in this game, he was as perfect as you can be without actually being perfect. 19 for 26, 296 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 148.9 quarterback rating. I believe just 10 points under a literal perfect rating. Again, as close to being perfect without being perfect. This year alone, he's outplayed Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Kenny Pickett, the quarterback who was picked first in that draft class that he was in, and now he outplayed Trevor Lawrence, not by a close margin, by a wide margin. And Trevor Lawrence, one of the most heralded quarterback prospects of all time, supposed to be the next, Peyton Manning, the next Andrew Luck, bona fide stud, and by all intents and purposes, he's been close to that, and Brock Purdy outplayed him from the get-go, and it wasn't even close. Any conversations about Brock Purdy? Yes, 7 turnovers the past 3 games, not pretty. I get it. It makes you wonder that, okay, the physical tools aren't there. Is he starting to, lag, or is there going to be a catch-up process for the NFL? Is the run over? I get there are questions to ask, but he was clearly not the problem against the Browns, the Vikings, and the Bengals outside of 7 plays through 3 games. Whereas Trevor Lawrence, I believe, now leads the entire NFL in picks, and nobody's talking about him and criticizing him like they're criticizing Brock Purdy. I get he doesn't look like the guy. He's not 6'3". He doesn't have an incredible arm. Had one against the Jaguars, mind you, but I get it. There are questions to be asked, but every time you say Brock Purdy's name, it's followed by a stat line, a record that aligns him with the elite names, the Mahomes, the Tuas, the Allens, the Burrows, or has him on pace with Hall of Famers like Kurt Warner and Tom Brady and Steve Young and Joe Montana. I'm not saying he is those players. I'm not saying he'll be those Hall of Famers. All I'm saying is, what more does this man, this 23-year-old quarterback that is the most underpaid quarterback in the entire league outside of Joshua Dobbs, have to do to make people buy in and just sit back and enjoy the ride? Yes, you can criticize 7 plays against the Bengals and against the Browns and against the Vikings. That's great. I get it. I did it too. And I said, what in the world were you thinking? That being said, every time, every game, we talk about Brock Purdy, it's like he was great for 3.5 quarters. He was phenomenal. When the game's over, it's like he's on pace with Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, the first person to do this since Hall of Famer, should be Hall of Famer. This kid is incredible. Incredible. He is the man. He's the guy. He leads the NFL this year in passer rating, 109.9. He, of the Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks, whether it's Jimmy G, Beathard, Mullins, Hoyer, Trey Lance, go back to the Falcon years, Matt Ryan, MVP Matt Ryan. I have stated from the beginning this year that Brock Purdy is the best quarterback Kyle Shanahan has had since MVP Matt Ryan in 2016. Some sat back and said, what in the world are you saying? Matt Ryan was amazing. He had Julio. He had all this amazing talent. They were crushing it. And guess what? EPA, which is a very Shanahan standard stat to use, 2016 Matt Ryan, a 0.339 EPA. That was first in the entire league. MVP for a reason. 2023 Brock Purdy, a 0.355 EPA. Higher than 2016 MVP Matt Ryan. Yes, there's so much more story in season to go on. Brock Purdy, at this very moment, and I would assume it's going to carry on the entire year because that's who he's been his entire career thus far, is better in this year than MVP Matt Ryan was in 2016. The questions of benching him, the disrespect needs to stop. Yes, I get it. Matt Ryan had the arm. He was a smart guy. Brock Purdy doesn't have an amazing arm. He can throw it 66 yards to George Kittle, mind you, and be perfect through 20 yards on the air. But all the conversations of, like, take Nick Wright, Fox Sports, respect him, don't agree with him at all. I don't even watch his show. But the fact that he sat back and said, we need to start having conversations of if they lose against the Jaguars, we may have to talk about starting Sam Darnold. And that's a disgrace. Hey, Nick, how you feel now that he rocked the freaking world of a former number 1 overall pick? And this is what I don't understand. And the Smitty says Niners, obviously, then also says Nick's a hater, and you are right, my friend. But this is what I don't get, is I understand that the Brock Purdy story of 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, it doesn't happen often, but I'm 26, going on 27 in 15 days. I have seen this before in my lifetime twice at quarterback. I know it's rare. It's not that rare when it comes to watching Tom Brady being a 6th round pick, or it's not watching Kurt Warner bagging groceries, or Steve Young being in the CFL and coming over. It's not like we haven't seen something along these lines beforehand. And I get it, it's rare. But in my lifetime, I've seen it twice, and I'm watching it unfold for a third time. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be those players when it's all said and done. Now, if he holds 7 rings, we're having a different conversation, right? But the fact that we sit back and are just like, Brock Purdy's not real. He's 7th-round pick for a reason. Oh, and he has 3 rough outings or 7 poor plays in 3 games, and all of a sudden it's he's not good enough or he can't do this. When you actually watch him play, and we're seeing people on Twitter banter with Richard Sherman saying, if you watch the tape, actually, are you serious? What are we doing? You're going to tell a future Hall of Fame cornerback who has a freaking Super Bowl defense played good enough to win 2 of them, and I can argue should have 3 of them because he should have had 1 here, to watch the tape. How entitled do we have to be to think that? Like, what? But Brock Purdy, every game, whether it's against the Rams or the Cowboys, against the Jaguars, even on his worst day, he is having relatively good games and a few bad plays. But I have seen this play out twice in my lifetime. This shouldn't, well, yes, isn't common. It's not like it hasn't happened. It's happened twice in my lifetime alone. And I sit back and say, wow, maybe it's time for a third. Warner, then followed by Brady, then followed by Brock Purdy. It's weirdly enough, again, this is so ironic, that Brady retires, then Purdy comes in. And I'm not saying that's whatever. I'm just saying that it's almost as if it was time for the NFL to have a new underdog, a new someone to come in and be that, oh, Mr. Relevant story, I can't believe this is happening. When you sit back and you realize, I've seen this twice, and I'm not even 27 years old yet. This should not be that big of a shock to most people. I get there are first-round picks that fail every single year. That doesn't shock me. I watched Baker Mayfield play for 3 different teams. I've watched Sam Darnold play for now 3 different teams. I've watched Daniel Jones get $40 million and suck. I've watched Tyrod Taylor play great and then have an issue with the ribs with the Chargers. I've watched so many first-round picks fail, quarterbacks fail that were told we're the starting quarterback. I watched Jimmy G get $70 million this year and get benched after 9 games for Aiden O'Connell. Now they're smoking cigars in Las Vegas. The fact that a high-end quarterback can fail and people go, well, yeah, I expected that. Or a first-round pick to fail and you go, yep, saw that one coming. The fit wasn't right. But when Brock Purdy plays great for basically a full season, it's like, this cannot be happening. Can't believe it. And we're skeptical every game that he plays. This is not that uncommon. Yeah, it's weird. It doesn't happen every single year. I wish it did, but that's what makes it so special. But the fact is, I've seen this twice. Brock Purdy has been awesome. There's magical cornfields in Iowa somewhere. He is a child of the corn. Honestly, he's beaten this year alone. He's beaten at the time the number 2 defense and number 3 defense in the entire league while having a basically perfect performance both times. He didn't play great against the Browns. At the time, they were the best defense in 50 years. It happens. You have bad games. Why is it that when you have 1, 2, 3 bad games, it's like, oh my goodness, the other 15 you've played don't matter? Like, yes, you can criticize poor play, but whether it was training camp this year and the people in the stands saying, well, Trey Lance is a better quarterback. Sam Darnold's look better some days. When Brock's like, bro, like, just wait till I play. It's not going to be close. And it hasn't been close through 2 years. If Brock Purdy and Jimmy G were on the same team in 2019 and 2017 together, I get different rosters, whatnot. It probably wouldn't have been close. Like, Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than half the league. He needs to be in the conversation of, you have your Mahomeses, sure. Tua is having a great year. Joe Burrow's having an up and down year, but overall good year. We've seen him be a good quarterback. We've seen Lamar Jackson be MVP Lamar this year for the majority of the season. Jared Goff's having a great year. I'd pick Purdy over Goff. At times, I'd pick Purdy over Josh Allen. And that's weird saying that because Josh Allen has the traits you want. He's a runner, but he plays hero ball and has cost his team so many games where Purdy's like, I don't usually do that. I just win games. It's so, and Schmitty says here, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And you're right. It is so obvious. I don't know why people just can't sit back and say, wow, this kid has got it. And it's so freaking obvious that he's great. Again, they've outscored the Jaguars and Dallas Cowboys 76-13. The number 2 and number 3 defenses in football at the time, and he didn't even play the entire fourth quarter, basically. And the team they're playing against on Sunday, they beat 35-7 last year without Deebo Samuel to begin the game because he got hurt, and Purdy had broken ribs, and he also didn't play the entire fourth quarter. Josh Johnson got snaps against the Buccaneers last year. I mean, come on. Again, whole season to go. It is abundantly clear. Whether you want to credit the offense, whether it's Ayuk or McCaffrey or Shanahan, against the blitz, against the Jaguars, Purdy, 3 touchdowns, 15.1 yards an attempt. That ain't the offense doing that. That's him doing that. On throws over 20-plus yards through the air, 6 for 6, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns, no pick. Had a perfect 158.3 rating on those throws, and also at a PFF grade of 98.5 when it comes to pushing the ball down the field. Dink and dunk, my ASS. It's the offense, my ASS. No freaking way can you actually watch the game and say, yeah, I just don't believe in Purdy. It's all the offense. Shut the frick up. No way do you believe that. And if you say that, I beg you to watch one Niner game. Because it's, again, like the Smitty says, it is abundantly clear. It is obvious from the jump this kid had something. Now, we didn't know what it was exactly, but now we're almost a full year in. People are so quick to crown CJ Stroud MVP conversation. He's playing great. All credit to him. He's a first-round pick, that's why. And Brock Purdy's outplaying former first-round picks a year ago, 2 years ago. He's outplaying quarterbacks getting paid $40, $50, $70 million. I was on 95.7 the game yesterday on Overtime doing postgame after the Jaguars game. And a caller asked, it was a great question. He asked, if Brock Purdy was a free agent after this year, how much do you think he'd get paid? And I said, more than Goff. He'd get paid more than Kirk Cousins. He should get paid more than Daniel Jones, making $40 million. He's already beat Dak Prescott twice. He's beat Trevor Lawrence. If Brock Purdy was a free agent today, he would set the quarterback market for at least that first year. He won't get, high-end top dollar Tua Burrow money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if amongst the quarterbacks on their open market this year, he would get paid the most, and it would not be even close. He's 23. He's lost 3 career games, and he's beating top 5 defenses all the time, and he's playing perfect against them. And he's also 2-0 come playoff time. And had he been healthy against the Eagles, who knows what would have happened. Brock Purdy would be a market-setting quarterback for those available in this next year's free agency if he was. Now, thankfully, he's making $900K for the next 2 years, and we don't have to worry about it. Because if he was, bye-bye Ayuk, bye-bye Chase Young, they would have to cut players to keep him. That's how good he's been. People don't want to have that conversation yet, but we truly should. And I get it. We all talked about it being elite after 5 games, and then you have 3 bad games in a row. Everyone was like, see. No. Let the entire year play out, and you'll see that he'll be in the MVP conversation for the majority of the year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to play like this He's not a finalist towards the end. It's like, and if he is, people are going to buy in then. They're going to stop talking and criticizing him then, asking, hoping he gets benched when? The conversations people are asking about Brock Purdy or the questions they're asking are questions they want to ask. Of, I'm not just sure he can do this. Those are not questions happening in that building. From John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, the entire offensive line, the defense. They have seen this for far too long, for 16, 17 games now, and the rest of the league, they can continue to hate and not believe. They'll see it once he scores 3 touchdowns, has almost 300 yards, and has a near perfect rating against their top 5 defense, and then they'll say, we were wrong about Brock Purdy. Who would have thought? We would have thought. It's abundantly clear how good he is. And we haven't even got to the entire rest of the offense yet because George Kittle was awesome. 3 catches, 116 yards, 1 touchdown in this game. He had Purdy hit him on the open floater for a big gain. Then, of course, the big 66-yard touchdown pass to open up the second half on the third total play kickoff. The pass to Deebo, then boom, Kittle, Shanahan being aggressive, a 10-point flip, halftime field goal by Moody, then a boom, big touchdown for Kittle. You get your 10 points. It's 23-3, and you're sitting here like, game over, lock it up, wrap it up. We are good to go. Aggressive Kyle, one of the best throws Purdy has ever made in his career. Pocket collapses, kind of off balance, throws it up to him. Perfect placement. You see Shanahan just fist pumping on the sideline. He knew it was a touchdown. That's how in sync they are as a head coach and quarterback combination. They know what's going on. The Ayuk was also awesome. The Ayuk. 3 catches, 55 yards, 1 big touchdown, had a big 20-yard crosser in this game. And also, Brock Purdy out here doing Brett Favre things. I talked about it in the Bengals game, which wasn't his best outing, mind you, but running to his left, running to his right, and somehow throwing a crossbody on 2 consecutive plays against the Bengals for a touchdown to CMC. In this game, he rolls to his left, doesn't find anybody, is like, then throws into triple coverage, one of the people being George Kittle. Thank God he didn't play defense on this play, and somehow fits the ball over Kittle and 2 defenders into the arms of Brandon Ayuk in the back of the end zone. Talk about the most bona fide F your defense play that I'm going to throw crossbody against your defense and they're not going to stop me because I know I'm going to make this throw. Now, Shanahan said, that's the worst throw he's ever done, hated it. And Purdy said, yeah, I'd agree. I don't want to do that. But had Mahomes done that, had Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, they'd be like, oh my goodness, all over Bleacher Report and the NFL, and they'd be saying, how great is this player? That needs to be put up on the freaking Jumbotron in Dallas saying, look what we have and look what you don't have. Because, my God, that was an elite level play from, in my opinion, right now, an elite level quarterback. Is it dangerous? Yes. We've always talked about that's what separates the good from the great. The willingness, the big cojones to make those plays. Brett Favre, as a person, not the biggest fan. As a player, a lot of picks, but guess what? He's won a ring, a lot of touchdowns, and a lot of wins for a reason. It can hurt you at times. In Minnesota, against the Saints, playoff game, forced to pass, picked off, the season's over. But I've also watched him run to his left and run to his right, and I'm throwing crossbody 80 yards downfield to Donald Driver and Greg Jennings and whoever else want to add, Bubba Franks, whoever else is in there, Sterling Sharp. And I'm hitting guys double, triple covered. It's dangerous. Yes, but it's what separates you from being good, great, and elite. Brock Purdy, dangerous throw. He's making Brett Favre Hall of Fame level throws out there. Decisions that you say, no, yes, because that's what gets you wins come Super Bowls and playoff time. We haven't had that since Steve Young. Even Kaepernick, for as great as he was, for as short of a time that was, he wasn't doing this stuff. He'd have an amazing run, and he'd crush the Packers, and he'd run through the Falcons, and an amazing comeback win in Atlanta. Great times. He wasn't making these kind of throws. Alex Smith, for as good as he was in that very short time we had him when he was actually good with Harbaugh, he wasn't doing this stuff. Jimmy G, for as many wins as he had, wasn't doing this stuff. 99% of the league isn't doing these things. I guarantee you poll all the teams. You'll have the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bengals, maybe someone else thrown in there I'm missing. Only 5 or 6 teams, Chargers probably, 7 teams would say, I wouldn't take Brock Purdy over the quarterback I have now. I'm just being honest with you. The Panthers were like, you can have Bryce Young, give me Brock Purdy. And he was this year's first-round pick. Like, come on. These conversations need to be had. That's how good he's been. Deebo, 4 catches, 30 yards, 3 rushing attempts, 29 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, end-around touchdown in this game. He was awesome. Getting him back out there physically, just having his presence was amazing. And going back to Purdy again, because why not? On the 3rd and 6, Purdy again evades pressure, makes a guy miss, jukes him out of his shoes, finds Deebo for a first down, arguably Purdy's best throw of the day. It doesn't even count. It doesn't even count. It's like, man, I've watched Purdy against the Giants and the Cowboys make all these plays, and it's like, wow, like, what the heck is going on? And it's like some of his best plays don't even count. And Texas boy here, obviously a Dallas Cowboys fan, you win 1 game and you think you're back. Look, Texas boy, I'll be abundantly clear with you. The Niners have to continue to do this. They can't go into the next game thinking it's all wrapped up and done. It's an every game decision to get ready, to prepare, to make plays, to come out there and want to dominate your opponent. You're right. It's 1 game. You have to go out there and crush Tampa Bay, beat the Seahawks twice, beat Philadelphia. But let me tell you something. You got the same record as us, and you done got your butt kicked 42-10, and you lost to Philadelphia on the road. So get back in the hole, my friend. Don't come over here saying you think you're back. The Dallas Cowboys haven't been back since the 1990s. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm sorry. Come call me when you play a playoff home game and actually win it for once. Don't come in here saying you think you're back. No. We'll play it next week. We'll play it for a whole year and beat you every single time. It's that simple. I respect you, but I'm just letting you know. No. Don't come in here with that stuff. Dallas Cowboy fans do not get to talk. Dak having a great year, mind you. CeeDee Lamb is crushing it. My fiance has her on her fantasy team, and I am so freaking jealous. Come call me when you beat Philadelphia in a month. Because it's not going to happen, unfortunately. They're better than you. We're better than you. Half the NFL, if they played you in playoff time, is better than you. I'm sorry. Win when it matters. Purdy already has twice. You ain't done it once yet. Sorry. I respect you. Wish you all the health in the world, but don't come in here. I'll hit you with the LA Knight. Nah. It's not going to happen. Even Kyle Juszczyk getting touchdowns in this game, and that brings us to Christian McCaffrey not being able to set the NFL record for consecutive games with the touchdown. You can tell there was this we kind of forgot about McCaffrey. Like, he had 96 yards, touched the ball plenty of times, and we were like, we forgot out of all the people, he didn't score a touchdown. It was so insane. They tried to force feed him the ball in the red zone to have him score. Like, they were actively risking his health for the future, saying, we're going to make sure you get this record. That's insane. McCaffrey had a great game, mind you, but it was like, what is going on? Forget the record, folks. I want the Lombardi trophy. We're having fun. I get this means something to him and Kyle. That's all cool. I wish he would have got it earlier, but it's like, let's have fun here. Let's not get hurt, though. Please. I've seen McCaffrey jump over defenders, and it looks like he's going to snap his knee in half or his leg in half, and you're like, for the love of God, stop. Just go down, Christian. I had no idea how you are that durable, but you have the oblique injury. Let's not re-aggravate that thing, please. and they fed him 4 straight times in the red zone and couldn't get in. Because the entire Jaguars offense or defense could have guarded him and they still would have thrown it his way. That being said, a great win for the San Francisco 49ers, back on top with a W, 34-3. Great win, back in the win column, knocking off a good Jacksonville Jaguars team, with now our focus on towards Baker Mayfield. Baker. Nick Bosa's coming for you next Sunday at Levi's Stadium. I hope you are ready. Again, a long week and a half with no San Francisco 49er football. Happy it's back. The second half of the season begins with a bang. A massive blowout victory over the Jaguars. Declawed them kitties like it was nothing. Now we're coming back home, hoping to make it 2 in a row and maybe even extend our lead over the Seahawks and get a game up on the Philadelphia Eagles, who have an insane schedule to end. They have the Chiefs, the Bills, us, and the Cowboys. There's a chance if they can make a run here and they can lose some games, we're right back into the thick of it. I hope you loved the show, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and review, whether it's on the audio version or on YouTube. Leaving a like, it's a free way to help the show, gets the video out to more people, and expands the audience we have, expands us to more faithful, because right now we are celebrating a victory Monday here in the Bay Area. Again, like, share, subscribe, leave that review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. You can use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. You want to go to that Buccaneers game? Use that promo code and get you a discount. Anything helps nowadays. That being said, my name is Sterling Bennett, saying thank you for watching. And like the Smitty says, the Cowgirls suck. 42-10. Niners get the win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, 34-3. And until next time, as always, stay faithful.